Jeff is going to speak on semantic analysis, content planning, and optimization strategies for Hummingbird and RankBrain. So Hummingbird sped up the ability of Google to crawl and index information and add it to the way that it starts to rank things, simply because it can consume it more rapidly and understand and parse the kinds of queries that it was seeing and the kind of information it was seeing. So great for that. RankBrain, probably the best instance of machine learning taking place today, that Google is training all of their multiple factors that they used to perhaps rely on human raters to do to figure out content and such, and building that into a machine learning model that is going to automate it and make it more effective over the long term. So Jeff Coyle, data-driven search engine marketing executive, 16 plus years experience product managing and also wrangling website networks. God bless you. And now as chief revenue officer, which is a kind of somewhat peculiar title, but maybe for a startup, Market Muse, which I think everybody in the audience should remember that name. They may not have heard a whole lot about it, but the idea of what you're doing is awesome, and looking forward to hearing more about that. You're doing it for content marketers, for search engine marketers, for agencies and e-commerce managers who sometimes struggle with an idea about subject matter and topical relevance. And you do this to build their topical authority, to improve their content quality, to turn semantic research into actionable insights. And since all B2B and practically everybody is relying on content marketing, you're in the sweet spot. So you also have sat in the seat of a lot of our audience, and you've operated an inbound marketing consultancy, and you've managed a traffic search and engagement team for a B2B tech publishing and lead generation company, TechTarget. So all of that said, I'm going to get out of your way and let you have at it, Jeff, because I'm sure you got great stuff for us.
Oh, thanks, Michael. And that's pretty good breakdown. And being in the sweet spot with Hummingbird, looking at semantic analysis, and trying to make it at least a little bit less dry as well. Trying to make it turn content planning into something where you're taking advantage of your strengths, filling gaps of content, and then transitioning from thinking about things only as keywords in isolation. Can you see my screen yet?
Not yet.
All right, good stuff. Let me take care of that. All right.
And here we go.
All right, good stuff. And thanks for that great introduction. So really taking a different way of thinking about things, not just as keywords in isolation, or trying to optimize for peppering in words into pages and determining whether that's going to lead you to getting search engine rankings, and really flipping that upside down and starting to think about the topics that you wish to cover and become an authority on. Also, Sujan, great presentation we just listened to. He speaks about audience targeting, and really thinking about an empathetic view on the content that you're creating, and what user intent profiles and searcher intents does your content need to satisfy in order to represent that model of authority. And then part of that, as you mentioned with RankBrain, involves answering complex queries, because a great percentage of searches that go through Google and go through the search engines are unique. They're one-off questions or one-off things that users need. How can you build content that answers a great deal of potential user intent profiles, and also maybe not directly answers some complex queries, but it's giving the best page of content for a lot of things about these concepts that you're looking to cover. And then that speaks to quality. No one's really been thinking about quantifying quality, or how I can make sure that what I write is comprehensive, until very, very recently. And that's something that we're really looking to do, to say, what does it mean? It's not just long form content. It's also content that speaks the user's language, not just the actual language, but the things that they are looking to read, answers the questions that they're looking to answer, and tells the story of empathy within, a content planning construct. And that's really the key of thinking, not just I want to rank for this keyword. No, I want to be the authority on this topic. I want to actually answer all the questions and satisfy the user needs wherever they are in their purchasing process. Maybe it's a buy cycle discussion, or maybe just something where they're just looking to answer a particular question. And to do this, I really love to kind of break this down into traditional content planning and how you can then put a semantic spin on it. And the first thing to think about is, who are you? I have to become very self-aware in order to, look in the mirror and say, do I deserve to perform well in this area? Do I deserve the rankings that I am going for? Do I deserve to be, based on what my content inventory tells the world? Am I the best resource for the things that I am ranking for? And we'll get into a few other things in a minute, but sometimes we find that we actually are ranking for things that we don't deserve. And what can I do in those situations? And in the last presentation, again, thinking about ways to repurpose content that's performing well, that weaves into some of these things too. But what does your content tell the world? It's the traditional content inventory items, things like my titles, the text of my content, what existing rankings do I have, what does my site architecture tell the search engines about the prioritization of the categories that I'm going for. Maybe I've got a blog post that's hidden 19 levels below my inventory, below my homepage, because I haven't done anything except installed the default WordPress structure, but I consider that really important. And so what does that site architecture tell me? It tells me that I don't really consider that page all that important. So those traditional content inventory concepts are important, but also, again, to say, where am I targeted? What is the collective of my content mean? And where have I really exhibited my expertise and answered questions while providing the information that my goal, my target users and my target audience is interested in? And all of those things now, with the transition to topics and the transition to where the search engines can start to understand user intent, it tells the story of authority, in addition to what has been in the past, before 2013, where it was just, individual metrics on page, individual metrics off page, combine them all together to tell the story of what makes up an authority. And so where you start, like I was touching on with a semantic content inventory, looking, first thing is you have to understand how to do a basic content inventory, grabbing all of your pages, whether you're using a crawler, whether you're, because you keep spreadsheets of your information, thinking about word counts, thinking about where my title tags, which kind of give a tip about the types of things that I'm targeting, where it sits within my site architecture. It's then taking that and adding, like I mentioned, a semantic spin. What types of content have I published? What types of users does the content make happy when they read this and really satisfy their needs? And thinking about, maybe I've got tens of thousands, maybe I've got thousands of content items. This is a big bear of a task. What are the thresholds that I'm going to use to determine if I'm going to dig another level deeper and manually evaluate content to determine whether I want to take action on it or use that for updating, repurposing, or even for creation of new content? And when you build those thresholds, maybe it's your top 10 performers, maybe it's your #1 lead converters, or maybe it's something where you just think this is great content and you're not really sure what happened with your promotion or your distribution that didn't lead to a lot of success. And you've got to sync up all of your current distribution channels, and that's something that you want to dig in and analyze. When you get into that content, the content that you're going to manually identify as something to really focus on, it's saying, okay, what am I looking at? Maybe I've got my title target, and maybe I understand what I was shooting for my focus topics of this item. Maybe I can look at my rankings. What is this page ranking for? And I can say, okay, what other things did I cover well on this? Is there something to the fact that my article about X also included great subject matter expertise about Y, Z, and A, these other topics within this content item? And is there something to that I can use to say I need to write new content that exhibits expertise on these related topics? And say, okay, the fact that I included all of these related topics, the fact that I included them elegantly in my content, and I didn't just pepper them into a bulleted list, or do it in some sort of thin content listicle of some sort. It tells the story that I actually have covered these things well, and I've aligned them well to the target topics that I'm shooting for. And then the last piece is really thinking about within my inventory, does this match the goals of my business? I've seen countless times as analyzing sites that 80% of the traffic to a B2B tech company, 80% of the traffic to a large publisher or an e-commerce site is going to target queries and content that doesn't even mesh with their current business plan. It doesn't mesh with what they're published in 2016. Maybe all of their traffic's going to 2014 content written about things that they don't even sell anymore, or it's such a low margin e-commerce product. It's really taking the steps of who am I speaking to, what are the topics I'm targeting, have I exhibited subject matter expertise, and then that last piece saying, does this match what I'm going for? Does this match what my publication, what I'm spending money on in 2016 in order to write content? And does it meet the topic goals of the business? And that's when you can really get into the fun stuff. And that's what when you're saying, okay, I know what my strengths are. I know where I'm very powerful and I have authority. How can I use that to my advantage? How can I take information about the fact that I am maybe a top 5 in this area and say, okay, well, I didn't do a great job at analyzing all of the user intent profiles within my target audience. And maybe I need to write individual pages that go for each one of those target audiences because I've already got some existing authority with the pieces that I've written. Finding those strengths and then also seeing situations where maybe I've got a gap in a related topic. Maybe when I was writing about a particular target topic, I've got a related topic that's saying, oh, come on, write about me. I'm very, very related. All you've got to do is publish that one piece about that related topic, and it's going to, piggyback on that existing authority and allow all boats to rise. Because with semantic analysis, targeted content planning, that's the big deal here. It's every item within the topic, every item within these groups, when you improve, grows every other item. They speak the language. This is the model of authority. This site tells the story that someone who is an expert on this topic likely would tell. And if you're the one telling that story, it creates, you are that model of authority, and all those boats rise. You're going to see home pages generate, more queries are going to be leading to your home pages and individual content pages appearing. I call it a term pool multiplier or a topic cluster multiplier, and you start to see those things happen over and over and over again. When you see pages on your site where 1,000 words you couldn't have possibly targeted, whether you're using a third-party tracking tool like SEMrush or SpyFu, you see all these queries appear per page, and you say, okay, wow, this page is a huge authority on 1,000 content items. I've got to expand this subject matter expertise. I got to write new content that speaks the language of this collective of queries that's leading to this page.
That's awesome. Jeff, can I jump in with a quick question I see here? So clearly, an understanding of what kind of content you have, getting a sense for maybe what you lack, how well your stuff is performing in particular, and then mapping it to, for lack of a better word, funnel. We have a funnel, prevents, if you have this complete set of content, you don't have holes for people to fall out of and exit your funnel, more or less. So how difficult, and this gets to the question, how difficult is it to do the kind of audit that you're talking about here?
To do the type of audit that I'm thinking about here, the difficulty is time. If you are not an expert, if you've gotten by and you have, and what you're writing about, you're not really an expert in the funnel, you don't understand the sales process, or you don't understand the audience. So there are some research components. How difficult is it to think about the content types and the audience and do that type of research? To do it at a keyword level is should be relatively self-explanatory. To get that next level of related topic information really does require that you're analyzing competitors, does require that you're thinking about user intent profiles, and it is a relatively manual process if you don't have some information resources from or just have your own subject matter expertise. It can be a challenge, and it's a work an hour intensive or labor intensive process to really dig in. But the benefit that you can reap from this information is amazing. And being able to identify that if you publish these sets of items and this is what you spend your content budget on, is going to be successful, or going to be 90% or 10 times in some cases more successful than your normal editorial planning process. Really, it makes it so that that process is worthwhile. And that's what, my business, we're building a system that does these things automatically. But even if you aren't using a solution like ours, using traditional keyword tools can get you part of the way, if not a great deal of the way there, along with your subject matter expertise, or even your audience research. Sujan gave a great example in the last presentation of asking your audience what they're interested in, asking your audience what they're experts on. That type of information can be built into doing your own topic modeling, for sure. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah. That's a great answer. Thanks for that. We're running into about the 10-minute mark, just to let you know where you stand.
Certainly. Well, yeah, I kind of touched on this, but fortifying strong content, it tells a similar story that we were just hearing about. It's how can I take this content and take advantage of it? How can I say I want to build that into maybe premium content that is going to gather email registrations? How can I take this and expand it, the depth of coverage? You've got an item that has, the seven ways of doing something. Well, maybe you need to expand that into 11 to cover some things, and then build some links and build a kind of a cluster of content that tells a little bit more of the story and fills gaps. People that are really focused on keywords in isolation, the telltale sign of a content item that was written really focused on keywords, it has a lot of focus keyword or target keyword mentions, but all of the related concepts that a subject matter expert would likely expect to see if someone was covering this topic, all of those related topics are missing. All of those user intent there's user intent blind spots, like you mentioned, Michael, where it's only talking about one part of the funnel and there's nothing else on the site that's going to satisfy. Maybe it's all awareness. What is this? And there's nothing about evaluation. There's nothing about how to purchase. There's nothing about ways to implement. And those are common, funnel structures. Really doing research about how to map your content to your specific targeted customer or audience funnel, or the ways that they think about the world, is this top priority. And combining that with semantic inventory is a 1-2 punch. That is a big deal. And there's a secret tactic at the bottom here that says if you're entering a new space and you don't have existing authority, one of the quickest ways that you can build it, if you have existing authority on another topic, is to think about the bridges. Think about the topics that are in between A and C. And when you figure out that bridge content, building out content packages in the middle that connect the dots between your existing authority and those new areas that you're trying to get, will give you a leg up instead of just publishing that new content on unrelated concepts and hoping.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's AC bridge content, one of my favorite things. So competitive priorities, I know we certainly are, this is a topic that you can talk about for 15 hours from a semantic content perspective, but you always need to be thinking about competitive priorities. Competition and things that relate to it, like some search engine marketing tools think about it as keyword difficulty. Really thinking about this as a concept level. How hard is it going to be for me to enter this space? Where am I doing well already? Where are my really, really big entities or authoritative entities in my focus topic regions? And what can I learn from them? What behemoths have written a lot of content? What ways are they speaking to the entire funnel or all the audience groups? What situations can I find in competition that are kind of exciting for me? Maybe everyone's doing the same thing in the search results, and I might be able to do something a little bit differently, or I do exactly what they're doing, add a lot more value, and then add even more value. A lot of times in e-commerce, you find this situation where you've got really thin content pages across the board. And you can really take that and run with it if nobody's taking the initiative to build great authoritative subject matter expert level content. But it's not just in e-commerce; it's really across the board. It's saying, what can I do that's going to tell a little bit more of the story and really establish myself as that authority. A lot of businesses I run into, they rest on their laurels. They don't assess what I call the ROSF, risk of standing still, for their most successful pages. They just say, hey, this is going to be there forever. No one's ever going to touch me. And what's happening behind the scenes a lot of time is people have taken, traditional keyword targeting strategies, and they're just eating away at your traffic, and you don't even know it because you haven't been thinking about it this way. You'll see people who are, they're like, I can't beat this guy on this authority keyword, but I'm going to write an individual content item about every single question from Quora or every single user intent profile targeted keyword variant within this space, and I'm just going to eat him alive, and he's only going to have traffic from that one head term, and then over time he's going to degrade because then I'm going to start publishing my entity content. People will, take advantage of you standing still, and so thinking about what it would mean if your most successful pages disappeared. What are the publishing frequencies of your competitors? What's the typical quality and coverage strengths of your competitors, and how can you stay one step ahead of those situations? And if you find competitors that are standing still, how can you exploit that to your advantage? Also, do you have people that just are making SEO mistakes? I mean, this is, what is the things that are hiding behind registration walls? They are doing great videos. They're doing great things, and they're just not optimizing them. They're not, doing things like transcription. They're not looking to really, maybe they have a technical flaw, but they got PDFs and SERPs, and they're not building those out into landing pages. All of these things can map to tell you a different kind of story, to say, what is the ideal content package that I can put together that's going to speak to as many people as I can. It's going to also take advantage of some of these competitive situations that I might identify. You're going to see it in B2B tech as well. Maybe there's a lot of people who they missed the class about filling the whole funnel, and they think that the best leads are only going to be at the tail end of the funnel, right in the purchasing phase. So they're like, write only content about the purchasing phase. They don't realize that they need to really be there. They need to extend and write to everyone, as many of those people, to really be an authority. So finding those fun situations where people have major blind spots, whether it's on content topics, whether it's on specific keywords where you can take advantage of, or even whether it's on user intent profiles. And there was a great in the last presentation thinking about update options. Always when you publish content, put your update frequency on there. You need to know when you need to update that item. If this does really well or beats a threshold, you should be going back and updating that, republishing it, sending it out your email newsletter, republishing it into your social media channels. But also you should need to be updating it to make it more powerful and more authoritative. You might not have hit all the possible related concepts and target demographics and target pools. Maybe you need new content that's very related that you can integrate with these powerful pages. Creatively expanding content is the key to taking advantage of your strengths and filling in the gaps that just naturally happen, because not all authors and editors are perfect. And that's always going to be the case. You're always going to have situations where you can expand and integrate content to tell the story and appeal to more user intent profiles. And here on the bottom is another kind of a trick of the trade here. It's if you've got low quality content groups, look in the mirror, acknowledge it, feel bad about yourself really quickly and say, hey, can I patch these together into something that is high quality, or should I abandon this group and do some redirection? Patching together some really thin stuff into something that speaks the language of your audience can be a quick way out of some problems that you've probably already inflicted on yourself. Whether it be from a Panda penalty or Panda related degradation, or something where you're just not meeting the needs, or you're not able to compete in an area. So that's something that when you then piece those items together, publish an authoritative piece on top of it. Publish an angle, a different angle. Maybe it's a different content type, or a different, focusing on two different user groups. Put them out at the same time, and you'll start to see an increase in the success rate for those items, because thin really doesn't win unless you've got a lot of off-page power. And then take it all and put it together. This is what content planning is all about. It's about inventory. It's about assessing strengths, filling gaps, meeting the needs of your users, really turning it yourself. If you have been an ego-driven person, turn yourself into an empathetic person that thinks about your readers and thinks about the variants, thinks about the user intent profiles, and says, have I covered all the things that my users want? Does this page that has a really poor bounce rate that is ranking, is there something I can do to make that not the case that's more than just a conversion rate optimization trick? Is it to meet the needs of these users? Can I apply this information from my competitive research and maybe take advantage of or exploit some things that a less sophisticated in-house team or somebody who's just not looking at this page with as much need or with as much desire as you are? Can you take advantage of that and really just slam them into the ground if that's what your goal is to trump? And then tying it together, your best friend are your editors. Your best friends are your content creators, people that can execute content if that's not you. So walk into those meetings, walk into those planning meetings, talking their language, talking about angles, talking about subject matter expertise, and maybe building out what you think would be great. They're going to be the ones that add value on top of it. Maybe they know the product really well. Maybe they know the customer really well and the problems that the customer has, or the common questions or things that they're thinking about. Maybe you didn't know when you were building out this information. Collaborate with the experts inside your team, collaborate with those editors, and come to the table with some value that you've learned about this from doing this type of research and looking at your inventory. And that's going to strengthen your relationship with the users because you're more empathetic, you're thinking about the things that they need, and it's going to strengthen, if you have a big in-house team or a lot of writers, it's going to strengthen your relationships with editors who often are the subject matter experts. And if you come to them and just kind of tell them what to do and, hey, write about this keyword, they're not going to think much of you. But when you can speak the language about, hey, this actually is what users are thinking, this is what they're doing, this is the information that I used to make these recommendations, they might want to shake your hand a few more times than just going off on their own and cursing you if you're an in-house SEO.
That's great. You're getting close to the conclusion here, I imagine, and that's awesome. I just wanted to say, this is all great stuff, especially because you seem to have brought us full cycle. At the end, we're talking about where the fingertips hit the keys and the rubber hits the road, and getting results for people. So just please.
It's awesome to think that you can take something that's so about, hey, I want to rank on this keyword and turn it into, no, I want to be an authority on this concept. I want to build the content package that tells the story that an expert would tell. And that's the transition that search engine optimization experts have to make to succeed now. They can't just rely on keywords in isolation or a keyword list or a spreadsheet. They've got to be thinking.
Just like an agile developer would be relying on a user story to describe the need, and that's something that I think a lot of people, when they think about it that way, like you said, that's where the results are going to be for them. So
you nailed it. You nailed it. User stories for content user stories, questions your article solves. People have question-based user stories. They have task-based user stories. Think about those user tasks. Think about the collection of complex things that go through these types of users. Think about the content types that they enjoy, because the same information can be repurposed. Sujan was talking about it, can be repurposed in n different content different content types, because not all readers. I have another presentation that talks about learner types. But not all people learn the same way. Do some research about learning types and different types of customers, whether it's via the DISC method of the dominant users, intellectual users, analytical users, or compassionate users, or whether it's via users that just have a lot of ego. Maybe your audience is typically egotistical. Maybe you need to speak to those things. So build content types. Certain people like to download PDFs. There's no reason that item can't be also a premium content item that's a slideshow. And so thinking about content types, not just to get these additional distribution channels. It's just people learn differently. And that's what, with what we're doing in Market Muse is really thinking about how people are building content, spending their money and getting inconsistent results, whether it's because it's thin content, whether it's because they think that they're an expert, or whether they've been resting on their laurels for a long time and not really thinking about competition or high quality or really what it means to be comprehensively covering a topic. We do have an offer here for Digital Olympus attendees, whether it's live or the recording. Check out what it would mean to really start to think differently about your content inventory. And I really appreciate the time and the questions. If there's any more, I'm not sure.
So I'm looking here for additional questions, and it seems that yeah, we've got some general things. I think you did a great job of covering the process, and just my question to you might be, if someone's going to take up your offer and try, Market Muse in some demonstration fashion, or on this sort of introductory basis. Is this going to be difficult for them to do, or is this they're going to be able to lead themselves through it?
No, certainly not. Well, if they were taking up stuff on the offer, our customer success team walks through all these use cases, whether it's to, how to perform a content inventory, how to, gauge what your next steps should be, what target topics you should be focused on. Maybe you have a named competitor. How do you think about things that way? Or maybe you have an initiative, the rest of 2016 editorial plan or calendar is already written, and you need to vet that and talk to you about, hey, which is going to be harder than others? Because you might want to focus on something, but to focus on that requires you're going to have to write a couple hundred content items seriously, that's the real deal in the situation in a lot of things.
Yeah. No, that's great. So anybody who wants to take up the offer will be able to enjoy some hands-on help from people at Market Muse, and this whole idea of moving beyond keywords is central to the way that I think about search engine marketing. I think it matters to a great many people. So thank you for that offer on behalf of the audience. I'm hoping people take this up, because this is the future, more or less. And